Jamie Bressler is a talented puppet builder known for her spot-on fan creations, custom puppets, and felt and fur plant puppets.
In part 2 of our conversation, we talked to Jamie about what experiences she learned at the O'Neil Puppetry Conference and what it's like to work in the fast-paced world of a professional costume shop.
We started our conversation by asking about working on The Little Mermaid Live.
That's a little bit funny because I had just moved. So like our entire apartment was in boxes. The living room was full of furniture. Nothing was where it needed to be. And each of those frogs, after they were carved and sanded, needed coats and coats of flock glue, tinted with paint. And it doesn't dry extraordinarily quickly, certainly not the first coat. And I had pretty much nowhere to put these things. I like hollowed out a space by the window to put a table, and had it over there. And then like once the legs were covered in paint, they were like hanging off of lamps, and like I pinned them from the ceiling and like off of doorknobs, and it was like such terrible timing on my part. I wasn't expecting to move when I took that project. It all happened very quickly. But yeah, I definitely dipped into how I sort of originally learned puppet building, which because SNL and stuff is so quick, most of what we did was carving and then covering very quickly versus, trying to flat pattern something and keep those patterns forever. These were sort of one and done type characters, especially since they often would get cut. It definitely wasn't outside of my comfort zone to carve these guys and put these big eyes on them. And yeah, I was really happy with how they came out.
What were the eyes? Because I didn't know how you found spheres so large.
They are from Plastret. There it is. I knew I'd get it.
Was it called Plastret?
Plastret, that's where I tend to get them. They were recently purchased by someone else, so there was a period of time where they were kind of hard to get, but hopefully they've got everything under control now. I haven't ordered from there in a little while.
So I would love to hear a little bit about, your experience of, going to a conference and that kind of how that really benefits you as a puppet builder.
Yeah, the O'Neil was an interesting case because I prefer to focus on building. I occasionally perform, but that's not really my focus. And that's very much what the O'Neil's focus is. So I sort of went the 1 year and took advantage of all of the building opportunities that they had, which was Jim Krupa's Met class and the late Jim Rose's marionette class. So I did those two things. And even though I don't know if I'll ever build a marionette again, it was definitely an invaluable experience to, see how a different kind of puppet is built and sort of be able to extrapolate ideas from, a marionette type puppet and put those into more of the soft Muppety style that I do more frequently.
Also, you never know when that one weird trick you learned at a convention 10 years ago pops up in your brain. You go, that's the perfect solution for whatever this
exactly. I definitely think of myself as a jack of all trades, master of none. I have like a shallow understanding of lots of things and a deep understanding of a couple things, but I'm certainly no expert at everything.
After you worked at the costume shop, were there any sort of techniques and stuff that you picked up from there that weren't traditionally used at puppet building places that you were able to apply?
I mean, they are traditionally used, but I would say learning costuming was incredibly helpful for draping. Obviously, we do use draping in puppet building. That's not new, but it wasn't something I had ever done before. And I remember the very first thing I draped, I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know about grains of fabric. And I was just like, muslin pin, sure. And my boss looked at it and was like, what did you do? This makes no sense. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Now it's one of my favorite things, draping, really listening to the fabric and figure out where to put darts and stuff. But I would say that was probably my biggest takeaway from costume building. And then most of the costumes we were doing weren't clothing. They were like big thumbtacks, or giant, like we did that Jeff the Diseased Lung for John Oliver, and that was kind of when I discovered and developed the masking tape method that a lot of people use. I saw it on, I don't know if you guys remember this old show that was on for one season on Sci-Fi. It was called like Monster Maker or something. And I mean, they were making really cool stuff, but the people on the show were really toxic and it was hard to watch. But I did learn a couple things, and that was one of them, where they like had to build a giant dinosaur. So they bought a dinosaur toy and taped it up and then like peeled off the pieces, and I was like, oh, genius. So I use that a lot. I just find it a lot easier sometimes, and it helps to not waste materials when you start out small, and you can try stuff out in a scale sort of way. Again, going back to my set design roots and model making and stuff.
If you're not using a bandsaw, what are you normally using to carve your heads?
I have to kind of just wing it because I don't have a bandsaw big enough to, cut the basic. I'm sure you guys have talked about, putting the front on the block and the side on the block, and then cutting one, putting the foam back together, and then cutting out the other side, and gives you a good place to start with. But I don't have a bandsaw that's tall enough for that. So I kind of just do my best with a blade.
Wow.
I know it's really bad, and sometimes it does not work. But I draw like the sides on both sides and the top and the bottom on both, and then I like very carefully kind of angling the blade up towards the center so that I don't accidentally go like too far down, because I can always like carve that away from the center if I need to. Like I said, it's not ideal, and I would love to someday have access, all the time to a bandsaw that I could just cut those heads.
It's funny you mentioned this because we were building a puppet head that it definitely dictated to be a carved head just because of the contours and such. And so I tried something which I've never done before, and it actually worked. So here's a little tip, maybe a little takeaway, which is I cut it into segments. So instead of doing it all as one piece, I cut it like I just did this piece. Then I just did, down the center. I did like the two front, two bottom, front, two back, top, two, back, bottom. And so it ended up with all of those different pieces. And then I glued them all together. And then at least I had that starting point that had an accurate front and side view. And then I went in with the blade.
Wait, that's great.
Yeah, that's smart.
Yeah, if you cover it in fleece, that works. But maybe if you were gonna,
it only worked because I was covered in fleece. Because all those glue lines would not.
I could never do that with something that was gonna get flocked.
Yeah, no. So how do people follow you and figure out all the cool stuff that you're doing?
Most of my work I post here on Instagram at JME Bressler. I believe these guys have tagged me in some of their videos and posts and stuff. And I have a website, jamiebressler.com. It is woefully out of date, but I will hopefully update it soon. I am planning to do some stuff for this summer, even though there won't be a physical convention. I still want to, have something new to share.
Awesome. We'll be sure to take a look at that on Instagram, I'm sure.
Who are you thinking of, or are you not ready to share that yet?
I'm leaning towards, there's an adorable show on Cartoon Network called Summer Camp Island, and there are a couple characters on there that I'm thinking about making.
Thank you again to Jamie Bressler, and thank you for watching.
Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time on the Swazzle Lunch Break.